Illyra lived with Vaughn in a hidden glade deep within the Whisperwood. Sunlight filtered through the leaves, dappling the forest floor. It painted shifting patterns on Vaughn's emerald scales as he dozed. Illyra, her fiery hair a stark contrast against his side, nestled against his warmth. They were different, a girl and her dragon, yet they were two halves of a whole. Vaughn was more than just Illyra's guardian. He was her confidant, her friend. They spent their days exploring the hidden paths of the forest, their laughter echoing through the ancient trees. Illyra would share stories from her worn books, her voice a soothing melody to Vaughn's ears. In the quiet solitude of the woods they found peace. As the sun set, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, they would return to their den. It was a haven carved into the base of a giant oak, filled with the comforting scent of moss and wood smoke. Illyra would cook their supper over a crackling fire, the flames dancing in Vaughn's watchful eyes. Their life was simple, peaceful, and filled with a love that transcended their differences. Beyond the Whisperwood lay Oakhaven, a village that huddled in the shadow of the forest. The villagers were kind, hard-working folk, but their hearts were filled with fear. Fear of the unknown, fear of the creatures that lurked in the forest's depths, and above all, fear of dragons. Tales passed down through generations spoke of dragons as fearsome beasts, destroyers of worlds. They were creatures of legend, whispered about in hushed tones. So when whispers of a dragon living in the Whisperwood reached Oakhaven, fear took root. The villagers shunned the forest, their fear a palpable barrier. Illyra was aware of their fear. She had glimpsed it in their eyes during her rare, fleeting visits to the village. They called her the Dragon's Child, their whispers following her like shadows. She was an outcast, a symbol of the very thing they feared the most. Illyra yearned to reach out, to tell them that Vaughn was not a monster, but their fear was a wall she could not breach. A shadow fell over Oakhaven. A sickness swift and merciless swept through the village. It began slowly, a cough here, a fever there, but soon it tightened its grip. The villagers, strong and resilient, found themselves bedridden, their faces pale and drawn. The plague spared no one. Fear, once directed at the Whisperwood, now consumed the village from within. The air, once filled with the sounds of laughter and life, grew heavy with the moans of the sick and the lamentations of the bereaved. The village healer, an old woman with eyes as deep as the forest itself, worked tirelessly. Her herbs and potions, once reliable remedies, offered little comfort against this relentless foe. As days turned into nights, the situation grew more desperate. Food stores dwindled, and the cries of sick children echoed through the empty streets. Hope, once a flickering candle in the darkness, threatened to be extinguished entirely. Oakhaven, once a beacon of life and warmth, was on the brink of collapse. Word of the plague reached Illyra and Vaughn on the wings of the wind. One crisp evening as they sat by their fire, the scent of wood smoke mingling with the crisp autumn air, they heard a new sound. It was a faint murmur, carried on the breeze, a sound of suffering and despair. Vaughn, his senses keener than any human's, raised his head. His emerald eyes, usually filled with warmth and gentleness, held a flicker of worry. He turned his head towards Illyra, a low rumble in his chest. She could hear it too. The sound of her childhood home, the village she had always kept at a distance, crying out in pain. That night, sleep eluded Illyra. She tossed and turned on her bed of moss and furs, her mind filled with images of the villagers. She remembered their faces, etched with fear and suspicion, yet she also remembered their kindness, the fleeting smiles they had offered her before scurrying away. Now they were plagued by an unseen enemy, their fear amplified tenfold. Illyra knew she couldn't ignore their plight. A fierce debate raged within Illyra. On one hand, she yearned to help the villagers. They were her people, connected to her by an invisible thread of shared history. The thought of them suffering, of children being consumed by an unyielding sickness, filled her with a deep and abiding dread. She had to do something. But fear, a cold and insidious serpent, coiled in her stomach. She remembered the whispers, the fear in their eyes, the way they recoiled from her as if she were the monster they believed Vaughn to be. Would they even accept her help? Would they see her act of kindness as a threat, a prelude to some dragon-wrought destruction? Vaughn, sensing her turmoil, nudged her hand with his snout. His touch, usually a source of comfort and reassurance, did little to ease her troubled mind. He understood her dilemma, the weight of their secret, the constant fear of discovery. He too had witnessed the villagers' fear, the way they treated Elira as an outcast. Yet he also sensed her compassion, her unwavering desire to help. The decision ultimately lay with her.